You are now listening to two dudes in their 30s with Adam and Greg. They're gonna talk about stuff, and you're gonna listen. Okay, got it. Good. Let's start the show. Hell yeah!
You hear me all right? Yeah.
What's it say?
Not a whole lot, man. Just got our apartment squared away for back in Albany.
Cool.
And not a whole lot, man. Just packing and getting ready for the big move. What'd you do?
Is working today, or?
Yeah, I dropped her off at like 7 this morning. Gonna pick her up at like 7 tonight.
Yeah.
And
So you're a couple more weeks.
yeah, it's coming
Another
up
week?
quick. It's coming up
2 weeks,
quick, man.
I don't even know.
We're trying to leave by the 13th, so yeah, like 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
What'd you do today?
Well, Ash's parents are here, so we did some running around sans kids today, which actually was kind of good. So
Cool.
got over and saw Eric's baby. Hadn't seen him yet.
Oh, really cool.
Dropped off a meal for somebody for Easter through work, so that was good. Did the good deed for the year, for the season, maybe. Hopefully not for the year. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, we just did some running around, some stuff that we needed to get done without the kids. So Ashley's parents were around to be able to watch them. So that was good.
Nice. How you feeling? You feeling any better?
Yeah, a little bit. Still trying to fight it. I don't know if you can hear it, but you?
Yeah, same thing, man. Getting over a cold, flu, whatever it is.
So we were in bringing in our guest this week. We talked to the Dirty Darlings. That's at the Dirty Darlings on Instagram and Facebook. Matt+Megan, and we had talked to Adam and Vanessa from Create Wonder in like our first kind of interview podcast, the third episode I think it was. And then we posted about that, and we had some different people, sort of van life, different people that were checking out our posts and checking out the podcast, I think, at that point. And these guys had, I think, liked a few of our posts. So I just kind of reached out and was like, hey, you have any interest in maybe jumping on as well, since their Instagram just seemed interesting. They took like really cool pictures and really good pictures.
Yeah,
and
Matt seems like an awesome photographer. Like checking.
Yeah, it seems like they do like a good job with the social media and with the photography, like you said. And from just reading, I try not to read too much about their background because I wanted to just ask the questions as opposed to know them and then try to re-ask them, which is always kind of weird. But it seemed like they were doing it maybe a little bit different. Like they were actually still working while out there. And so that seemed like it was a little different than what I had seen from other people that were doing it. It seemed like other people like kind of gave up work and were just jumping out there and doing the van life full time. And these guys were actually working their jobs in some way, shape, or form while still doing it. And so I wanted to kind of see how that was as compared to some of the other, people I'd seen. So yeah, so it was. So we had a good time. We had a good time chatting with them earlier this week. As you'll hear, they were just open to pretty much going anywhere we wanted to go with the conversation. And which was weird. Like we've been saying in the last couple of episodes, we're feeling like we're kind of getting more comfortable, hitting our stride a little bit. And with this one, I almost felt like they sort of put, I don't know if you feel the same way, they put me at ease with how comfortable they were talking. And that probably is our job as the people that are sort of running or reaching out to do the podcast or the interview. But to me, it kind of felt like almost the opposite, which was nice because it just made like for a very easy, comfortable conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like I connected with them, and like I could literally sit down with a beer at any restaurant with them and just talk normal conversation. They're really down to earth people, really interesting stories, and yeah, it was really fun just connecting and talking with them.
Yeah, like when we hung up earlier in the week, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was just like, wow, that was just those people we could just actually hang out with. Like it felt like we were, we're actually in 3 different places. Like I'm in New York, you're in California, and they're in Florida. But it felt like we were just kind of hanging out, having a conversation, which I think is the point, which was fun. It was cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's flip it over to the conversation with them, and I hope you guys enjoy it.
guys. How you doing? This is Greg.
How's it going, guys? It's Adam.
Can you guys see and or hear us?
We can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't see us. We have we have like full bars here in Destin, Florida, but we just found out that we're getting 0.2 meg download speeds.
So we're not sure if we actually have a good enough connection to do this right now.
So we can hear you
But if
fine.
you can hear us,
Yeah, we can hear you, and we
Cool.
don't necessarily need to see you, although you get Adam's picture up right now. So
You look good,
looking
Adam.
good. Nice beard.
Hi,
Yeah.
guys. So,
I'll show mine, even though my ironing board's in the background.
No sleeping baby in the background this time?
No, the baby's sleeping next door, so we'll see if he's, well, the 2.5-year-old is sleeping, and then the baby's maybe downstairs, hopefully quiet, but we'll see what happens. I don't know. You never know.
yeah.
We're,
I'm sure my dog's going to go berserk in about 2 minutes. My wife's going to be home. She usually lets us all know when there's an intruder, so.
yeah. If you've listened, I think you
Safety
guys maybe
first.
you guys have maybe listened to an episode or two, so we're not like a pro show, but we're getting it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
Thank you, guys.
So yeah, thanks a lot. So I think you guys saw that we talked to Adam and Vanessa from Great Wonder previously. I think that was like our first interview that we did.
Yeah.
And then I came across your guys' page on Instagram, and I was like, wow, you guys are doing something pretty cool too. So we've been kind of randomly reaching out to all sorts of people, and you guys are gracious enough to come on and chat for a couple minutes. So we appreciate it.
For sure. Thanks for asking.
So we'll kind of just jump right in, and we're trying not to take up too much of your time. You guys said you were in Destin. I saw on Instagram you were in Alabama this morning.
Yeah. Mobile, Alabama.
Oh, man.
We just drove, so did some work there in a coffee shop this morning, and then just got into Florida, which is state number 14, I think.
And you guys started when? Remind me.
September 1st of last year.
Oh, okay. I don't know, like I've
Been
no...
almost 7 months.
That's great. You guys have been home a couple times, or how's that work? I know you guys are actually both working regular jobs still while doing this, correct?
Ish.
Yeah.
Meg's working a regular job. I'm kind of just floating right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. So I'm still working with my same employer from San Francisco, part-time. Matt's doing a little bit of freelance and also has worked contracted back with his previous employer on a couple projects as well. And we started on the West Coast, so we covered most of the West Coast, and during that we did a couple different loops where we kind of went back to California a couple different times for either weddings, or we ended up kind of changing plans and going back home for the holidays, which wasn't part of the original plan, but ended up being nice to be home with families.
Cool.
So tell us a little bit about your backstory. So, like, I kind of read on your website real quick, like, you were an accountant, and Matt was doing, like, adventure kind of photographer sort of stuff. But kind of how did this idea start? Like, whose idea was it? In my mind, it's probably more Matt's, because he's kind of more I'm thinking, like, I don't know, radical.
You're stereotyping accountants right now.
Yeah, right?
You don't think it's the accountant's idea?
Yeah, I'll definitely let Matt tell the story, because you're right. It was his kind of original idea.
Yeah, I kind of dreamed it up before Megan and I had even met, or before I realized anybody else was living in vans, or that there was such a thing as hashtag van life. I was just like I was living in San Francisco, and I knew that I didn't want to live in San Francisco forever, but I didn't know where my next stop or anywhere that I'd want to kind of put down roots in would be, and I kind of figured what better way to answer that question than to see all 50 states. So that became a goal, and then it took a year and a half maybe 2 years before it actually happened, and before I found Megan to join me and stuff.
Very
He
cool.
just started a checklist, find van, find woman to go with me. I mean, that's, I guess, maybe not far from the truth, but on our first date, we met in San Francisco, and he was telling me about these crazy dreams of moving into a van and traveling across the states, and while I thought that he was probably mostly joking, but maybe not, it was probably a month or two in where I was like, I don't think he's joking. Like, there's a good chance that this is going kind of well, and he might just kind of leave San Francisco, and I might never see him again. And then give it maybe another month after that where he was like, no, you don't get it. I'd kind of love if you want to come with me. And so from there, it was probably, it was probably 4 months into our relationship where we were seriously talking about doing this. And then it was probably another 3 or 4 months after that where we actually hit the road.
Wow. What kind of rational, accountant hesitations did you have when he was asking, like, do you want to do this?
We were both, very much in a similar place when we met. So I was living in San Francisco for about 8 years. I loved San Francisco, had a really great life there, but at the same time, I just kind of felt like it wasn't where I wanted to be forever, and I was thinking about making some sort of change, moving to San Francisco, moving to Denver, trying something new. And this was probably never where I would have seen myself making that change, but was also a really fun opportunity to do something different and have some adventure and give me an opportunity to maybe explore some other interests and travel. And I think we're both very realistic people, or very rational, and so there was definitely some rational accountant thoughts or crunching numbers in the background of, is this really gonna work, or do I want to do this, or is this crazy? Yes, this is crazy, but that's okay. Mm-hmm. So embrace that a little bit.
Are you guys from San Francisco originally, or somewhere else?
I am from a small town in Central California called Oakhurst. It's about 20 minutes outside Yosemite, or the southern gate into Yosemite. So grew up in a super small town and ended up in San Francisco after college, working for a public accounting firm.
And I'm from Eastern Washington, or Central Washington, rather, the Wenatchee Valley. I actually have no idea how long I was living in San Francisco before we moved. It's kind of a running joke for us.
Very bad with time.
Yeah.
So I don't know a lot of people that have been to San Francisco that have moved there, but it seems like anybody that I know or that I've heard of, they've been drawn to the city but then wanted to leave too. So what's that about, San Francisco? Or is that just the few people
exhausting.
that I know?
I don't know. It's pretty. I'm more of a slower pace kind of guy, and it's not conducive to my energy, I think, in a lot of ways. First year I moved there, it was just party time all the time, and it was great, but I can only do that for so long. I started to get old fast,
Yeah.
Graying hair.
What brought you to San Francisco? Was it a job, Matt, or?
Yeah, it was a job. It was the same job that I was working in Seattle before I moved down. They moved me down. We opened up 2 new studios. I worked for Creative Live. We teach people how to basically build businesses using cameras and other creative pursuits. And so I managed the broadcast team in our 2 studios in San Francisco, and then doing video production and audio.
There's a dog.
And stuff like that. There's a dog. And yeah, I knew that when they asked me to move, when I was living in Seattle, I was like, oh, I want to live in San Diego. The weather's always perfect.
It's
Beach life
down
sounds
here.
great.
I love it. I don't want to leave.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, San Francisco seems like a pretty good, it's halfway there, so let's try that.
Very cool. So you probably heard my wife and I, we're gonna be doing a road trip coming up north in California, kind of making our way, moseying across. What places maybe in the California, Oregon, Washington area would you say are a must go? You have to see this.
Yeah, first, San Francisco is pretty great, especially just for a couple of days. Or a day, definitely stop by there if you're gonna go up north. But then the Redwoods, what was the fairyland called?
We stayed at this campground called Gold Bluff Beach Campground.
Yeah. Majestic.
It's in Redwoods State Park, right on the beach. It was just beautiful. Probably one of our favorite spots we've stayed.
And do the Fern Canyon hike. It's like real-life Fern Gully. It's totally amazing. It's like this canyon with ferns growing all the way up the walls. And wear waterproof boots if you got them, because you'll be walking up a river, basically.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's just this really cool place where you're stuck in between the ocean and these giant sequoia trees and all these ferns, and just super unique and beautiful.
Very cool.
But there's all sorts of stuff. I mean, the whole coastline is beautiful. The Oregon coast, that's probably like one of the most beautiful drives we've done. Washington and like the Wenatchee Valley is beautiful.
Yeah.
Idaho was actually a really big surprise
Yeah,
for me.
Sun Valley area and the Sawtooth Mountains are just like totally epic. But when we be going through there?
In like 3 weeks, we're gonna be leaving. Doing a 3-week road
Okay.
trip, kind of cross country. So we're gonna try to hit as much as we can. You know.
Yeah. Be prepared to be cold as hell. And if you go to Sun Valley, oh man, we were there in September, and somehow it got down to like 14 degrees at night, or 19 or something like that.
That was the first night we learned that our van isn't really insulated like we thought it was.
Yeah.
It got pretty cold.
So I did read that you guys didn't really do like the conventional like van build, like take 3 months, do everything, set everything up. You guys kind of just winged it. You're like, well, we'll kind of do this, and get on the road is more important. You want to tell us kind of a little bit about that, and maybe some regrets and maybe some benefits to that.
Well, the benefit is definitely that we never would have gotten on the road if it were up to me to build a van. And I knew that about myself. Like, I would have probably even bought the shell of a van, and it just never would have been finished. And then I'd still be living in San Francisco, paying $500 a month just to store this van because there's nowhere to put anything in San Francisco.
It sounds like me starting a podcast.
Yeah, just put the gear in your closet. You know?
I've had this mic for a long time, but
yeah. And so I was just like, I'm just gonna buy one, and I know that's not like as sexy of a thing to do, or as personalized, I guess. But I scoured the internet. I had set up a Craigslist alert in every major city in the nation to get an email for like van, camper van, van stove, sprinter van, like every search that I would have searched for. And so I was just getting hundreds of emails every day, and then just clicking through them. And the van, this van that I ended up buying, popped up in Pensacola, Florida, which we just drove through today, actually. It popped up in Pensacola, and I had my eye on it for a couple weeks, and I was talking to the guy and asking questions and stuff, and I was like, shoot, like this, like I love the layout, like it's got really low miles. The dude did it himself and stuff like that. It checked a lot of boxes for me, and so I happened to be going down to New Orleans for a friend's surprise birthday party. And then I got down there, and basically I was just like, hey, dudes, you want to go on a day trip with me? Like, I want to go check out this van. It's the day after Halloween. I've never been more hungover in my life from just, like, Bourbon Street in New Orleans and just hurricanes up the yin-yang. And so I haul my buddies out to Pensacola. We check it out, and I was so hungover, I didn't have, like, the brain function to really – it was the most stressful day of my life. Like, I couldn't, like, put a complete thought together about whether it was a good idea, good van, bad van. I just like drove it once and then gave the guy the money, canceled my return trip back to San Francisco, and drove back. I was like, all right, like it's happening. It's real now. And then I just kind of sat on the van and I just parked it a half mile away from my place in San Francisco for almost a year before we left.
Wow. I feel like if I did something like that, my wife would disown me. I don't know, man. I have the same dream. I would love to do something like that, and I totally get the whole van life experience. Like, you get to travel all over the place, explore all the different places in the world and that you want to go to, and you have your little home there with your bathroom, shower, your kitchen, everything. That's awesome, man.
You would take her on a few trips or a few like weekend camping trips and show her how great it was and how easy it is to camp. You don't have to set anything up, and she'd get on board.
Have you guys done anything to modify it since you got it? I mean, just from the pictures on Instagram, it looks pretty great. So have you made any changes?
Yeah. Megan made the best curtains of all time. We designed them together. So like we kind of mentioned before, our van is not well insulated / it's not insulated at all. And so we have these 3-layer curtains with the Mylar in the middle, and then we like spent actually a lot of time picking out the fabric. And then she sewed them all together, and they're just amazing. They completely block out all the lights, so we can stealth camp. They really help with insulation for heat and cold.
Yeah, we did probably like 2 big project weekends before we left, among like a couple other smaller things, where we put like shelves in all the cabinets. The cabinets were all like totally empty. There was like no way we could actually store stuff in them just because it was a giant black hole. So we put like shelves in, we made curtains, we like recovered the seats and did really small things just to kind of try and customize it a little bit. But it was mostly built out. Like, it had everything we needed. It had a microwave in it when he bought it, I guess, and we took that out and we replaced it with a wine rack.
Yeah, that's how you customize. That's how we customize anyways.
Nice.
I see you guys have like solar and everything on it too. Did you guys do that, or did you have somebody kind of install it for you? Like, what kind of setup do you have for that?
That was already there, and we have really probably overbuilt solar system. We got 400 watts of solar on the roof and 400 amp hour of batteries. And the dude that built the van out that I bought it from did all that. We did have to replace the batteries before we left. They were just like, I don't know how deep into the weeds you want to get on this stuff, but they needed to be replaced. Yeah.
Adam would talk to you about that stuff all day.
Oh,
but...
yeah, man. I love renewable energy. I'm going back to a job in New York, actually. That's why we're moving back for getting back into that. So, yeah. That's cool, man.
Yeah.
What have been some of the biggest challenges you guys have had out there besides the cold?
I think just like not having, like for me, just not having like a purpose. Like I'm good with like routine, and I'm a good employee, and just not really know, like I'm too young to be retired, and it feels like I'm retired a lot of the time. I think our
mindset shifted really quickly when we left. Like before we were on the road, it was kind of like, oh, we're going to take this 6-month trip. It's going to be vacation. We're going to take some time off. And then I kind of had an opportunity to continue working while we were on the road. So I was like, oh, that'd be great. I can continue to make money on the side while we go travel and do all these other things. And I think at some point pretty early on, after our first couple of months, it definitely changed to where it was more like, oh, this is kind of like the lifestyle that we're choosing now. Like, it's not just a short-term vacation. We also very quickly decided that 6 months was not going to be enough, and, up that to a year, and now it's kind of like, oh, we don't really know how long. But trying to figure out the way to actually make the longer-term lifestyle work. Like, it's not what we want to do forever by any means, but it's not just vacation anymore, and trying to figure out how all the other real world life things fit into now what we're doing, I think is still a challenge.
Because even if you live in a van, you do still have to like do regular life things, and life still exists outside of Instagram posts and stuff like that.
What do you guys do for like bringing in income? Obviously, like you're trying to build like a personal brand. Also, I would assume. Do you guys kind of have goals of trying to grow this into like a business?
I think we still go back and forth on that. Like, we started the blog and, Instagram and some of these things when we left around what we're doing and who we are. And I think those are kind of, for me, it's like a really nice creative outlet to have this place to share stories and do these things that are very different than my actual day-to-day job. And, getting bored with that and wanting to maybe explore other things as well. And, Matt obviously has a lot of experience and interest and photography and videography, and we talked about how to maybe monetize some of those things. And we've played around with a couple different things of shooting photos or doing videos for brands, but I think we're not really, I guess, pursuing that aggressively right now. It's kind of like an option, or if someone comes to us, we'll talk about opportunities, but it's not something that we've been very aggressive in taking steps towards.
Cool.
It's more just about like a really good way to connect with other people doing what we're doing, and like social media has been kind of nice in that way.
Seems like you guys kind of hit it pretty good as compared to other people where, you know, like for me, it's kind of hard to picture how I could work and do this at the same time. I mean, obviously now with 2 kids, it's not going to happen anytime soon, but where you guys could kind of continue to work and make some money and still have the income coming in to be able to kind of afford this sort of endeavor. What I was going to ask before was, it sounds like you're kind of talking more about like flexibility, like how do you maintain that flexible kind of lifestyle that you have right now, even if you set up roots somewhere? Is that kind of what you meant if you sort of envisioned what you were going to do long term? Like how do you still kind of get to do things on a whim and, you know, maybe start the day at 10 or noon as opposed to that 9 to 5 kind of thing? Is that sort of what you were getting at before when you were talking about how to transition out of this at some point, or am I off base there?
Yeah, no, you are on base. I think for me, it's like I've gone from anything from working 4 hours a week to working 40 hours a week since we've been on the road. And so because my job is a little more structured or rigid when I am working, it's been harder to keep the flexibility of the lifestyle that we want. So the more I'm working, the harder it is to like go see things or explore, or I end up spending a bunch of time in a coffee shop all day while Matt's either trying to entertain himself or waiting for me to be done. And one thing that has done, which I enjoy, is it's made us move a little slower. Like I enjoy being in places longer rather than kind of being in a different place every night. But trying to find the balance of being able to actually be offline and go enjoy where we are and explore, I think has been my personal struggle.
So it sounds like being able to get that direct deposit every couple of weeks is nice, but it might be kind of holding you back at the same time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a sacrifice right now. So it's been nice during the winter to make money, and I'm super fortunate to have the ability to be able to have a job to work while we're on the road. But at the same time, especially going into summer and spring, like with weather and having these things that we want to go do, I'm not sure what it'll look like, I guess. Like I want the flexibility to go explore national parks during the week when there's no one there and not be stuck only traveling on the weekends.
I get that.
But I'm also working more than I had planned right now, so I'm working almost full time at this point.
Nice. So what are you guys thinking for like the next few weeks or whatever? You guys kind of have a game plan of where you're gonna try to go and check out, like places, the next states?
Yeah, we're finally going to go see my grandma in Sarasota, Florida, which originally we'd planned to be there in like January.
Grandma land.
Yeah.
Definitely
Grandma
and all
land.
the other grandmas in Florida.
Yeah. And then we'll probably do kind of just like a loop through Florida. I'm excited about the Everglades and kind of check out Key West a little bit, or the Keys anyways, and play in some shark-infested water. You know?
Definitely a good time of year to be down in Florida, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
What'd you think of Alabama? Like, I don't know anything about the South but like Disney World, honestly. So have you guys ever spent any time there before now, or?
Just when I bought the van, just driving through was my only experience. And we didn't really spend like a ton of time there. It was one day. We did have grits for breakfast though. To try to get to know the South a little bit. Our waitress kind of made us.
What'd you think?
Matt asked our waitress to explain what grits were and immediately gave us away as total outsiders.
She's like, where are you from?
Not from here at all.
Yeah.
So what did you think?
Her favorite.
Not your favorite thing ever?
Me neither. I don't really like mushy food so much. Or corn. I don't really like corn either. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, she said you had to grow up with it. It was different if you've been eating it since you were a kid.
So you have to give it flavor. There's like no taste to it. You have to either put some maple syrup on it or something to give it some texture and flavor.
Yeah, she said that she normally puts butter, salt, and there was something else that she normally puts
cheese.
in it. Cheese.
I was like, everything tasty.
Like, at
Got
that
it.
point, you're just eating cheese and butter.
Yeah. Why don't you just leave the grits out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, so have you guys had any crazy like mishap stories or any like, I don't know, memorable experiences that you want to share?
Maybe I don't have much of a memory, but I do remember this moment. 2 hours into our drive total, like September 1st. We're like high-fiving, pumped, totally ecstatic. We got a big weekend. We're kicking off our big trip, at this point, 6-month trip in camping in Big Sur. And 2 hours into the drive, Vanna shuts down and breaks down, and we have to pull over on the side of the road. And I think that set the tone. To make a long
story short, yeah, we had a little bit of car trouble one day in, which ended up all working out fine, but we had a much more stressful first weekend on the road than we thought we were going to have. But it was also a really good kind of, I guess, reality check of like, okay, we live in a vehicle now, so this was probably going to happen at some point. And
glad
for
it
to happen now. It's not necessarily a bad thing, especially when we were still in California and close to familiar things where we could easily figure it out, where like if that happened while we were in Alabama, we'd definitely be a little more hard on like to do research and figure out where we were and where we could go. But other than that, we've been really fortunate to not really be in sketchy situations, and nothing bad has happened. We're definitely careful and cognizant of what we're doing and what situations we put ourselves in, but I'd say most of our stories are pretty boring.
What kind of mishaps are we talking about? What kind of juicy stories are you trying to hear? Because I'm sure we got them somewhere.
I don't know. Anyone trying to tow your vehicle in the middle of the night? Like, like you're in it, like, I'm in here. I don't know, anything crazy.
We had some kids try and steal the bikes off the back of our vehicle while we were sleeping one night, and I think we gave them more of a scare than they gave us, just because I don't think they were expecting someone to be in the vehicle. Like, literally all we had to do was bang on the back window and send them running.
Nice.
But
it was great. We were parked outside of Megan's uncle and aunt's house. Like, the safest suburb in Costa Mesa, California.
Yeah.
And they were just, like, some punk-ass kids. And it was, like, 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and Megan just, like, shakes me awake. She's like, there's somebody's trying to steal our bikes. And all I do is, like, peer into the thing, peer through the window, and just, like, start banging on the window. And I swear, they probably pissed their pants.
Yeah, it was probably, like, 3 high schoolers or younger.
But they had, like, the bolt cutters out and everything. Like, they were ready to take them away, yeah.
And that's probably, like, you asked about, I guess, kind of the design of the van, and if, we didn't do the build ourselves, and that's one of the biggest things I probably would do differently if we did build out our own van, was, one, make storage for the bikes underneath our bed platform in the back, which it would be nice not to have them outside for safety and just for wear and tear on the bike.
Have you guys done like a lot of like urban sleeps, or have you been pretty much out in like rural areas for the most part? Like, because I think if I was out in the middle of nowhere, I'd be pretty comfortable asleep, but I don't know, like on the side of the road in a city, how comfortable I'd be just kind of locking up and closing my eyes. But I don't know. Maybe that you just get used to it after a night or two.
We stealth camp a lot, and I already had experience doing that. I started my road tripping career traveling around in my little Toyota Prius, and I put a mattress in the back, and I just like super tinted the windows, and then I would sleep. I lived in it for a couple of weeks, going from San Francisco to Arizona, and did quite a few trips like that. So I was already pretty used to it, and really it's just like if somebody comes and knocks on your window, if like the cops come or whatever, just don't just don't acknowledge that you're sleeping in there, and then they can't give you a ticket. You know?
They have no reason to know that there's someone
Yeah,
in there.
it's an empty vehicle for all they care.
That's true.
And I think that Vanna is an old shuttle bus, so she has like the shuttle bus doors and looks a lot different than a lot of the vans that people have built out, where I think it has actually helped us kind of blend in on streets where people think that it's just like a shuttle bus parked for the night.
We did have one person ask us if we were, if we were there to pick her up in San Francisco. I don't remember what she called us.
In the park, yeah. She's
Yeah.
like, "Is this the shuttle bus? Can you take me to Fisherman's Wharf?"
Yeah.
Did you guys ever watch The Office where they had like an old like van from some like Asian fish market and some woman just like walked in and just like sat down when they were delivering paper one time? Sounds like a similar story.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. How about any like the most memorable maybe national parks? Because that's I think what we're excited about the most. Maybe like share a
So
few
for me,
national
it's
parks.
Utah. It's all southern Utah. My absolute favorite was Bryce Canyon. It's just like small, the most interesting, beautiful place. I think I even said this out loud while we were there. I was like, I just can't like point my camera in any direction and not get a good shot. Like it just looks so cool here. But then Zion and Arches and Canyonlands, like all of Utah is unbeatable.
Yeah. Side story.
Yeah, and
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you go.
I was gonna say side story. My wife and I went to hike in Zion. We did Angel's Landing, which is like this ridiculous
Totally.
hike. So we get to like I don't know the top of like I forgot what it was called, but it's like halfway up basically. And my legs started like wobbling. It was like windy as heck. My wife's like, "Come on, let's go." And I was like, "No, I can't do it. I just can't do it." She's like, "Come on, let's do this." Out of the two of us, I was the one that wussed out, and to this day, I still like kick myself for it.
I mean, what was the statistic? Like 13 people have died on there since 2006 or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you got wobbly legs, you probably played it safe. I mean, or just like sip some
Before you
Gatorade
tell
or
the
something.
bridges.
I used the rational accountant side of my brain that time.
Definitely.
The left side of the brain.
Yeah. How about for you, Megan? What was some of the favorite national parks maybe you guys visited?
Southern Utah, like that whole area was definitely a favorite, like Matt said. Some of the other ones were like Yosemite is obviously a favorite. I kind of grew up going there, so it always kind of holds this special place in my heart. But, you know, the Redwoods was beautiful. I'd never been there before. Olympic National Forest in Washington. Somewhere like Death Valley was really cool. Like I had never been to that part of California just to see, you know, the difference between going through these pine forests and then also being in the desert. But honestly, like, I don't know if there's any bad national parks out there. Like, it's really hard to go wrong once you're kind of in that area.
We were even impressed by Big Bend in Texas.
Yeah.
Like, even, like, it's, I mean, that place is huge, too, and it really only has kind of 3 features. It takes you, like, 4 hours to get from one to the next, but it was really cool. Like, you can swim to Mexico from there. That's pretty sweet. We didn't, though, just in case any cops were listening.
But you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, we could, yeah, totally.
Yeah, you could have walked across the river into Mexico.
Nice.
What advice would you give people that are thinking about doing something like this from your guys' experience so far?
Embrace the struggle. I think, like, all your problems are still going to exist, whether, like, moving into a van and traveling is not going to erase many, if any, of your problems. Like, you still have to, you got to work hard to keep a positive attitude sometimes, and stuff goes wrong all the time, and just, like, expect it and embrace it and recognize that it's making you a stronger person. Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's important to still have goals and feel like you have a purpose and, you know, I guess go into it with intention and know kind of what you want to get out of it is really important. I feel like we kind of floundered for the first couple months on the road as we tried to figure out if we were on vacation or just like living life.
It was actually, I thought we were on vacation. Megan thought we were just trying to make a life on the road. And so we found a little bit of friction
We
there.
met in the middle.
Yeah.
And like, don't let your vehicle hold you back either. Like, a lot of people think they need to find the perfect vehicle and spend 6 months, building it out and waiting until they have the perfect situation and the perfect job, and nothing's ever going to be perfect. So I think you just need to figure out how to take what you have and make it work and just do it if it's actually something that you're interested in. It's definitely not a lifestyle or something that everyone strives for either.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what ways do you guys feel like maybe you've grown through these experiences?
Ooh, I don't know. I think learning to keep a positive mindset no matter what happens is definitely key. I think I've learned a lot about, I guess, what I really care about and different values. Like, community is huge, and I left a really awesome group of friends in San Francisco, and as I left, I knew that was going to be hard. And we kind of left searching for this thing, like, we don't want to live in San Francisco. Let's go find another place that we do want to live. Let's find a community that we'd want to put roots in. And I think, one, it's really hard to get a feeling for a place when you're passing through. Like, you really do need to spend time there to understand that community. And it also really made me appreciate, I guess, the people and relationships that I have in my life already. And just kind of, I guess, it made me realize what some of my values are, and what I really want in a place is, it doesn't necessarily matter how cool it is or how awesome or where it is, but to have kind of people around you that you really care about.
I think similarly, I didn't realize that community was important to me, like that important to me. Like, I'm pretty good at being just a lone wolf a lot of the time. But it's interesting, like, Meg and I will go a week sometimes with literally talking to 0 other people in person. Like, I call my mom once a week on the phone, but then, like, it's Megan and then my mom once a week. And then the first time you talk to somebody, it's like, this is nice. This is great. Yeah. And then I also, how I feel like I've grown is just maybe a reminder that everything is figure outable. Like, we have like the brain power and the Google to kind of figure out any problem that we find,
Absolutely.
Google is like the only way that this podcast ever makes it on the air every single week. So
Definitely, yeah.
Like, there's more goes into this than I ever realized before I started thinking about it. But well, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm sure this has been a huge learning process for you.
Oh my gosh, it's been crazy. I never edited one piece of sound or video ever before we put the first episode up. So we're figuring it out though every week. It sounds okay. So my parents like it.
Yeah, I've noticed improvements for sure.
Oh, thank you. I actually get that idea though of being like trying to figure out if you're on vacation or maybe being like that complacent thing, because like for me, when I go away for like a week, like I'm ready to come home by the end to get back to work, which sounds really weird, I think, to a lot of people. Yeah. But I am like I'm a kind of a creature of habit. I like the routine. Like, I'm cool getting up early every day and just getting into my thing. And even if I'm on vacation, if I'm doing like a staycation, if we're home for a few days, after like 2 days, I'm like, God, I'm bored. Like, I love the idea of not having anything to do, but after a day, I need something else to kind of keep me going. I don't know. So I kind of get that feeling for sure.
Yeah. I think I
totally
identify with
definitely.
you a little bit with Matt, though, on the free spirit kind of, like, I find this intriguing. I think it's interesting, and I at some point would like to try this with my wife.
You're gonna do it for 3 weeks coming up.
Yeah, it would be a good kind of trial run.
It's gonna fly by. Yeah.
Work the kinks out, hopefully, and not bring them to the surface more than anything.
You're gonna hotel camp, right? But besides that,
kind of.
right.
We're bringing a tent too, so it's gonna be a tight squeeze with all our junk in our Honda Element, but it'll work out.
Make it work.
Yeah.
I seem to always ask the relationship question. I'm just going to do it again. But you guys, it's kind of interesting. So we've talked to a couple of couples so far that have done like different things, and they've both been like married and been together for a long time. You guys haven't. So how does that work? Like, how do you get the kind of like, yeah, we're doing this, we're getting together, we're jumping in this van and we're going to drive. Like how does that evolve? How's your relationship evolved? Depending on how deep you want to go here at the end.
Megan, cough once, Megan, if you've been kidnapped.
That was me.
I'm not sure what kind of impression you guys have about me.
I mean, the creepy man with a white van wasn't weird.
How much candy did he give you?
We have a stockpile.
I really did try to set the tone on the very first date of like, I'm a bit of an extremist and I'm okay going faster than social norms or different than social norms. And we had a conversation before we left and before we probably even really agreed to go on this trip together that like, this is kind of a make it or break it test for us that we both signed up for. No kidnapping was involved. Really clear on that. And we're pretty good about checking in with each other and making sure that this is still something that we want to do and what it looks like in another 2 or 5 or 12 months or whatever it's going to be. And yeah, as far as how it's grown, I don't know if I really. I don't know. Since like day one, I felt pretty comfortable with Megan, which...
Yeah. I think our first realization being on the road like for 2 months or maybe a month was that we realized we were now spending like every second together, and that although we were with each other way more than we ever were before, we kind of felt like we weren't actually growing closer, or that we were more like just spending time together but not really spending time together. And we kind of realized that we needed to be a little bit more intentional about the fact that just because we are doing everything together and are together 24/7 to actually still, have real conversations and check in and
just go on dates and stuff.
Yeah.
And that it was a nice realization when we decided to go to Blue Man Group in Las Vegas.
Date night.
and a buffet.
I don't think I've ever seen Matt happier than he was at a Las Vegas buffet.
It was great.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, we definitely knew going into it that it was going to be make it or break it. And as I, talked to friends and family before we left and said, like, I know this sounds kind of crazy that I'm going to, move into a van and sell everything I own to do so with this guy I just met a few months ago. At the same time, I'm going to know really quickly if it's not going to work out. So and I always had the fallback plan of knowing that I could go back to San Francisco and a life there if that's what I wanted.
Did you get pushback from family and friends or like pressure to say, wow, this is crazy. Why are you doing this? Not that you just met each other, but just the fact that you're going to drive around in a van around the U.S. for however long you're going to do it.
Her dad didn't love the idea.
I don't think my dad loves the idea still, especially when Matt leaves for work and travels and I'm doing van life solo and he calls me every night to make sure I'm okay and tells him I make him crazy when I sleep in Walmart parking lots on my own, which I'm sure is understandable. He's a dad and he worries and I love him for it. But my parents, I think, were a little surprised when I told them what we were doing. And one, I definitely dropped a big bomb on them of not really giving them, I guess, much advance notice of, hey, I don't really know if I want to stay in San Francisco. I'm thinking about moving. Instead, I just kind of dropped the bomb of, hey, meet my boyfriend. Oh, by the way, I think we're going to move into a van and travel the country.
She said that on the way out the door the first time that I met her parents.
Oh.
I was a little nervous to tell them, and I wanted them to meet Matt before I told them. So we had kind of decided we were doing this, and then I felt weird about not telling them because it was a big decision. But at the same time, I was like, they've never met Matt. They're not going to get it if they've never met him, and I tell them this, they're going to freak out. So then when they finally did meet him and we were then getting ready to leave my parents' house for the weekend, I dropped the bomb on my mom and was like, okay, well, see you later. I'll talk to you soon. And then just hope she would then tell my dad, and then they could, like, let it set in, and then we'd talk about it more.
That could be why he's not super psyched, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't blame them. But at the same time, they're incredibly supportive. I'm also an only child, so, you know, I think they would be supportive and proud no matter what I do, which I appreciate. But as much as they worry, no one has given me pushback. It's all been supportive. I think when we went back to San Francisco about a month and a half after we had started on the road, people were kind of like, okay, so, like, are you moving back? Like, is this over? And I think when I talk to friends, I still kind of get that, like, so when are you moving back? Like, this, you know, your fling here is almost done. Like, it's time to come back to San Francisco, right? And I kind of keep telling them, well, no, I think we're going to stay and, like, keep doing this, and we're having fun. I think they're still a little surprised, or maybe they just expect us to still come back.
And not very many of my friends are surprised, or my family. They all kind of saw it coming.
I guess, like, for Teresa and I definitely identify with the whole travels and journey, and, like, I think of, like, the book The Alchemist with Santiago, like, the main character, how he's going in search of, you know, foreign lands or whatever, and then finally he finds, like, his treasure back at home. You guys kind of feel like, you know, maybe one day, you know, after you kind of do this, that you'll be able to settle back in, that it's going to be awkward or weird or anything like that, like coming back and settling back in there? Or
so the whole point of the trip originally was not to go back to San Francisco, but it's been a joke of the trip the whole time that we're just going to end up back in San Francisco. I think that's what we're looking for, though. Like, if we scrape every inch of the United States and we say, oh no, yeah, it is, like, the North Bay is where we want to be, then I think that sounds awesome. Like, as long as we have a decision to go off of, and yeah, I'm not interested in just, like, traveling or just floating forever.
Yeah. And like you said, Greg, like, you go on vacation for a week and then you're kind of excited to get back to, like, your life or your job or whatever it is back home. And I see that in our future. Like, I would love to have a more permanent situation at some point in the future, and I'm not ready for that now, but I definitely see myself wanting to get back to that. So I don't think it will be weird to settle back down into something like that. I think it's really hard to think about it just because we do have this, like, unknown of where we want that to be. But
I was going to ask, are you guys hitting up the Northeast? Do you have plans yet, or are you still kind of just doing Florida and then figuring it out, maybe hitting up the coast as it gets a little warmer?
yeah, we have, so kind of our plan for the rest of this year is we're going to do Florida, and then we're going to do up part of the coast, so like Georgia and South Carolina. And then we're actually coming back to Florida to meet some friends that are flying out for, like, a long weekend kind of group trip. And then our plan is to head up to the Midwest, like Chicago and Wisconsin, Minneapolis area. Matt has some family up there. And then do Colorado in, like, late summer. And then we'll head up to the Northeast for the fall.
Get out by, like, mid-November, or else you're going to be sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking about that today. Matt looked at me and he was like, what, we're still going to be in the Northeast in November? And I was like, well, I mean, I think so. Probably just getting ready to leave, but...
There's still snow on the ground here in Albany, New York, so... Not fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it doesn't feel like spring yet.
oh my God, no. It's bad.
when you guys do come up to the Northeast, definitely get in touch with us. We'd love to meet you guys in person, and
Yeah, you got to hit us up.
take you guys
Yeah,
out
that
to
sounds
dinner or
great.
That'd be
something.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if people want to check you guys out on social media, online, where can they find your stuff?
They can find us at the Dirty Darlings on Instagram, as well as we have a website, thedirtydarlings.com. We're on Facebook as well, but yeah, Instagram's probably the best place to find us and reach out to us.
I was going to actually ask real quick, how did you guys come up with a name and the branding?
It was one of those, like, what would your stripper name be? Just kidding. Totally joking. I don't know. It was a lot of wine, and we went through probably like a month of just like, what are we going to call this thing? And we came up with a bunch of different names, and then there's a lot of questions about how we're going to shower and about how I don't really care about bathing anyways. So people thought that we were going to be dirty but darling anyways. Or I was the dirty one, Megan was the darling one. Maybe that's probably what it was.
Yeah, someone made a joke. We were like around a dinner table talking to some friends, and we were like talking about how we couldn't agree on a name. We both had very different views of what it was. And the whole reason we were even thinking about why we needed a name was because we were like, oh, we're going to do this thing, and there's going to be a blog, and we're going to, shoot photos for brands, and like we need a name, which none of that ended up coming true. But someone made a joke about we were looking at someone else's Instagram, and it was like the Darlings, and it was very cutesy, beautiful Instagram page. And then someone made a joke that we were the Dirty Darlings, similar to that. And we were kind of like, maybe that works. It kind of stuck. Yeah. At that point, we just wanted to stop talking about what it would be. So we're like, sure, let's do it.
Yeah. I wanted it to be like pissing in the woods.
I was gonna say I'm really proud of myself. Like I avoided the shower and shit question because I asked it to Adam and Vanessa and it got awkward. So I just decided I'm gonna leave that alone this time around.
And they have a much better bathroom situation than we do, so it's good that you went through with them.
Nice. Hey,
I couldn't figure out how to ask it, but whatever.
I think it went well.
When I came up with this name, it was literally like the first thing that popped in my head, and then I typed it in Word, and I changed some of the colors. I took a picture of it with my phone, and that's our logo. So,
you know what? Like the first thing that you think of that
kidding.
Works and get it done, efficient.
It is what it is. So, like Adam said, like, what if we do this when we're in our 40s? I'm like, well, we got a little ways to go, but if we do, then that's great.
Yeah.
We're just stuck with the name.
You got a few years.
Yeah.
And then there'll always be a story behind it, though, so you don't even need to change it.
Exactly.
Then it's just like, we've been doing this thing for 10 years, it's wonderful, so we couldn't change the name.
Exactly. Got the following. All right. Well, thank you, guys. We're going to let you get back to your night in Florida. It's 9 o'clock on the East Coast. It's probably still like 70 degrees there, right?
All the retired people here are already asleep.
Yep. Lights are out.
The thermostat says 76.
Nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. It's nice.
That's my kind of weather. Well, give Grandma a big hug from us, and it was really great. It was great talking to you guys. Thank you so much for connecting with us.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much for having us.
Great meeting you.
Thanks, guys. Later.
All right, so that was our conversation with Matt and Megan, a.k.a. Dirty Darlings. Hopefully you enjoyed that. We had a lot of fun speaking with them earlier this week and learned some different things and just got a good sense of kind of what their life has been like since last September and their life on the road. And it was fun kind of catching up with them and getting to know them a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again, Matt, for your technical background and helping us find out and tweak.
Oh yeah, after we hung up, we got a lot of tips on how to actually record these things. So that was fun. And Matt's an audio engineer, so he helped us actually learn how to talk onto one of the mics.
Yeah, I've been having an issue with mine, so thank you so much, Matt. You saved us here.
Yes, we learned something along the way, so that was awesome. So thanks everybody for checking us out again this week. We're continuing to line some more conversations and talks up. And we're having fun. We're talking. We're trying to meet new people, and it's been kind of a cool experience for us. And hopefully you're enjoying it as well. We'll keep putting them out there every week. And thanks again for everyone that's been listening, that's been checking us out each week, that's been telling friends, that's been giving us feedback. We really appreciate that. Again, we'll continue to kind of plug the social media at 2dudes30 for everywhere. At 2dudes30@gmail.com if you want to shoot us an email, have any questions, comments. We'd be happy to connect with you that way as well.
So thanks again for listening to another week, and we're looking forward to catching you next Monday. This one is Continuance by Enigmatic Heart. And hey, maybe we'll talk to these guys in the band at some point soon too. Spoiler alert. Awesome. Goodbye.